Everybody continues to just be absolutely spellbound by this story out of Arizona where Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, continues to be missing tonight, a couple days after her initial disappearance. Police saying she was taken against her will. We don't know where she is. We know she's on medication that she needs to be taking on a regular basis. She's not particularly mobile, according to the reports and everything we've seen about this case. Bottom line, this case does not feel good. It has people unsettled. We don't know what's going on, and the longer it drags out, it does seem to be the worse that it is. We're joined now by Greg Sanfilippo, a security expert. Greg, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And it just seems this case just feels wrong. She's missing. She's been missing. We know the feds are out, state, local officials. What's your impression of what happened here? We do know the local police have called the home a crime scene of some sort.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks for having me. The longer it goes on, the more troubling it becomes, right? Those first few hours in these investigations are most important. And now you look at that crime scene from, the immediate spot of where it happened inside that house. And now the longer it goes on, those circles, those rings, if you will, get bigger and bigger. So it becomes more and more harder, right, for the investigators as time goes on, that the further and further away the kidnapper and Nancy Guthrie can be from that scene.
Yeah, Sharon, our colleague, made an interesting point. If you have older parents, you check in with them, but it's going to take a while till you would ever think, to put the pieces together that your parent is missing. It's just a scenario you would never expect. Apparently, she didn't show up for church, and then they started figuring things out. Their Apple Watch apparently, sort of disconnected. We do know that the home has been turned back over to the family. So whatever police work they were doing there is done. And then I guess today's big update was that there was some sort of ransom note apparently seeking Bitcoin for her safe return. We don't know the contents of the note. We don't know if it's real. I guess with a high profile case like this, there's always a concern that people are now just going to sort of parachute in and try to use it to their own ends. What is your thought process on whether that is a real ransom note or someone just trying to cash in off this potential tragedy?
The longer this went on, the higher the expectation that I was waiting to see. Was there going to be a ransom note somewhere? Right, these investigations always start close to the family. You would look at something like this as possibly an insider. Is it a connection to the family? Then investigators, are determining, very loving family. It's not a threat from inside the family.
Mm-hmm.
And now then we have to then turn and look to see where the threat is coming from outside the family. So again, still more to come on whether that ransom note was in fact coming from the kidnappers. But I was waiting for at some point for a note to show up.
What about her role as a high profile journalist? Obviously, someone who's been on the Today Show for years at this point. She was getting ready to head out to the Winter Olympics, well known figure. We're living in these wild, dangerous, polarized times. Do you think there's a world where in any way her role as a high profile media figure is somehow tied into this? Someone got some deranged idea in their head and went towards the mother. They happen to know she lived there. It's not a situation where I would imagine this woman was living under strict security thinking anyone was going to be after her.
It's absolutely a threat vector, a direction of where we look at from security is where the threats can come from. The higher the profile someone has,
Mm-hmm.
the more threat opportunities, right, are out there. So not only celebrities, now with social media, there's so much exposure. With more exposure, obviously, we're talking about a news personality here, but with more exposure becomes more grievance, right? So, looking at from a protective intelligence standpoint, trying to find, who's out there with posting with grievances is so important when trying to get ahead of this. It's very important to get ahead of this as far as finding out where your data leaks, if you will, are, right?
Mhm.
There's so much of our information online with online data brokers that it becomes a security hole that takes um, you- constant effort to try to take those information sources down. So if someone does have a grievance against you, it doesn't take a couple of dollars online to go find
Yeah, no,
out all
all
your
that info, you're
addresses and
right.
connections.
It's just floating around the internet. We give it away for free to so many companies. It gets gathered up. It's not too hard to find it. It's interesting too. Of course, looks like this is a relatively, presumably a nice neighborhood, secluded. Sharon mentioned something about it. It butts up to some park where a lot of people go through. What about the specter of ring cams? Everybody's got a ring cam. Did I read something today where the ring cam was missing from her home, or what do we know about sort of surveillance footage that they may have access to?
So there's still an open question as to whether her ring cam was operable, or did someone disable it? Maybe the kidnappers disabled that in the process or took it with them.
Hmm.
So that's still being sorted out by the investigators. The investigators are going to continue to go around and try to find other ring cameras, other cameras. So that is continues to be an active pursuit of the investigators, right? So but we see a lot where we have people that have plenty of cameras, but the question is, where's that data going? Is there anyone
Hmm.
that's monitoring it? Is there anyone that is watching it for that access control? We can look at the cameras for an investigation, but how do we turn that technology into something proactive?
Yeah, it's just a horrible story. It gives you the creeps just to think about it. Greg Sanfilippo, we do appreciate you joining us. Of course, the longer this drags on, the more fearful we get of a bad outcome here. But everyone is sending their best, hoping against hope that somehow this turns out to be, have a successful resolution to it. It's definitely frightening, though. No doubt about it. Greg, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.